in a world where one post can shake the whole rap world, only one man can bring perspective. That's right. It's HQ. I've got an HQ theory here on a post by Punch from TDE. If you don't know who Punch is, he's a exec at Top Dog Entertainment. He says his manager, close with Kendrick's former label. So he made a post there, as you can see, 2 million views on the top, 652,000 on the bottom. Says the divide in hip hop is insane. It's like it's two different ideologies. The battle may have been the catalyst, but it feels like it's been bubbling for a while. No matter the topic is, you can tell who clearly falls on what side. Depending on which side was taking the battle, that same group of people may like the same sports stars, same politicians, the same stance on whatever issues, etc. It's like a social experiment. Okay, first and foremost, I'm going to lead with a positive, which is I actually appreciate the little bit of candidness that I get from someone like Punch from TDE, because the TDE PG Lane camp, sometimes I don't feel like I get a lot of candidness like this. Punch is usually somebody I can go on his post and kind of like get a vibe. Like, oh, yeah, he gives a lot of information. You just got to know I'd be able to read between the lines. Secondly, on the positive side is I don't think this is the worst thing, but I can see why people could be upset, particularly when you talk about the divide in hip hop. You're alluding to pretty much what you think represents one side, which is more of the Drake, Nicki Minaj, Lil Wayne kind of vibe, right? Versus the other side, which is of your guy, the Kendrick Lamar's, etc. Right? And I'm just sort of paraphrasing there. But let's talk a little bit about more of why people would be upset, right? And it's about two things: a generalization and a little bit of a lack of accountability from Punch and TDE. So back to a little positive again. I do agree to a certain extent when Punch says there's kind of like a divide in hip hop, and also he kind of says it's been bubbling for a while. What I don't really like though is that this thing in hip hop has been more than bubbling, right? And I think we were meeting some sort of resolution, which is, in my opinion, used to be more about the commercial hip hop stars versus those still in the underground. That's what it felt like it used to be before. And then now we've reached a sort of turning point where very commercial hip hop stars are trying to still keeping elements of the underground. They remind people of the underground, and people look at those people kind of like with this purity lens, right? And then there's another group that's not doing the same, and people don't look at them with a purity lens, and from a purity lens, and it just kind of gets a little weird, right? But I'll move that aside for now. So the generalization, if you look at the bottom here, when Punch says, and group of the people like the same sports stars, same politicians, I push back a little bit on that. I've made a video about this where, like, while I do understand why some people may think that, you know, if you like Drake, you like MAGA because he associates with like someone like Aiden Ross or things like that. Drake associates with a lot of other people. And I get it because, again, Lil Wayne got a pardon from Trump. Like, I get it, right? But I could flip sides and say someone like Snoop performed at Trump's inauguration, right? Or, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's not, I just think that's kind of odd, because when you go to the other side too, there are elements of how people look at the cultural sort of makeup of rap and the upbringing, and in the conversations we've had recently with the battle, where some of that stuff might seem a little bit excluding, right? And some people lean into nationalism, right? And that's more of Trump's alley. So it's kind of weird, right? And when we talk about the same sports stars, I don't know, dog. Like, I've met mad people, if not for the fact that LeBron and Drake kind of got whatever they got going on. I met mad people, bro, that like KD, like LeBron, and love Drake, or they like, you know, it's just, so I just felt like there was a generalization there. And you were saying it like it was certain, like it's a social experiment, making it seem like it was more of a bigger issue than it was, right? That's odd. Now, the one I think most people it's the accountability portion, okay? Now, while I know Punch might be speaking for himself here, right, he's got to realize and remember what side he was on in the battle. And, I mean, I could deep this a little more, but Punch, for the love of God, your guy made a song called Not Like Us. Now, while I do understand what Not Like Us represents in this avenue, that avenue, blah, 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 this, that, and the third, brother, It's an anthem that when the people who are the us are using it, it's inclusive for them. But the they in a group, not inclusive. Actually very divisive. In fact, what I think Punch probably has more of a point on, I guess maybe is in a commentary space, but also accountability. I think I remember we was talking about academics the other day and Dave Free linking up with them. There was an element of like, if you weren't saying everything always positive about Kendrick and just bashing Drake all day, it's just like you didn't get it. You're not on the right side of hip hop. And even I would get that sometimes. And I'm like, I know more hip hop than you've ever breathed in your life. I studied this thing to a T, right? And I'm more so about the facts. I enjoy both guys, but it's that kind of energy. And I think even outside of Dot, even the people on his camp on the internet and the journalists and things like that, they were pushing this narrative, right? So there's that. Now, more about the accountability. Even if you take away Not Like Us, again, Punch, I understand that this may not be a youth thing. But even if you go back to Euphoria, right? Even that angle was definitely, it's not just me, I'm what the culture feeling, right? And when we talk about, again, remember, now I'm going to bring out that first point that I made as far as like, the divide in hip hop used to be about commercial versus, underground. And that kind of was the realm of where I thought the real fight was happening. Because at least the underground was kind of like vying for the creativity, and then the commercial people felt like was signing back deals, selling their soul, this, that, and the third. This new one, like on Euphoria, when Dot says it's not just me, I'm what the culture feeling. He starts with when getting into vaguely talking about the blackness, like even that before Drake did his nonsense, bringing up family and having people look at him from a moral, and he didn't even have the moral high ground in the first place, right? Even that already was speaking towards this. And I implore Punch, he would know better than me because he's the one that's cool with Dot, that this might also frustrate people because how do you know this is not what Dot wants, right? And I think that if you're trying to paint this new world, which I think is now, this is now in the conclusion to my essay, to what I think the divide really is so much money in this shit now that everybody should stop patronizing everyone. Everybody should stop grandstanding. Everybody should stop acting like it's this battle. This is my HQ theory between like the good and the bad, the rich is the poor, all you ninjas is doing millions of streams. All you ninjas went back to the Super Bowl after the Kaepernick shit. All you ninjas are selling perfume. All you ninjas is buying Chanel. All you ninjas is working with Kodak Black. All you ninjas is hanging out with Morgan Wallen. All you ninjas, you understand what I'm saying? Are there differences in terms of relationships with people, reputations? Some have better than others. Yes, I'm not being vague to that, but I'm saying looking at it from with a wider lens, this conversation now is more about who can keep. And I think this is what probably Dot was more so arguing. I don't know if he can communicate it. I don't know what he wants. I would love to interview him, right? Who can keep more of the elements of what made this shit great at its inception while going about what we're going about and still making some sacrifices here and there while amassing a capital, right? And it feels a lot like someone like Drake or Kanye West, because that's who we learned from, said, nah, screw that, right? And it kind of seems like someone like Kendrick, who kind of embodies the underground for people, but is super commercial, was gently trying to figure out how to do it. And then he now opened the floodgates after battling Drake. And he's like, all right, I'm the commercial guy, but this is how I'm going to do it. And hopefully I'm doing it right. Right. So I just feel like this was a bit coy from Punch, because if I ask him what side is what side, and what politician does he stand for, and what ideology does he believe in, he'll probably describe one that makes him and his group seem more virtuous. Okay? I hope I explained this well. Good talk.